and welcome to Boomer 11 Live. And today we're going to be talking about football because the European side of things has kicked on after the World Cup and some exciting clashes that we saw. I have with me Abel. Abel, overall, how glad are you to see the European club fixtures back? Both Europa League and the Champions League were back this past week. And we saw some exciting matches that happened, especially the one between Barcelona and Manchester United. But before we get to it, what is your overall take from this week's fixtures?
Yeah, as a background just change of football, good to be having that switch all of a sudden, because it's a highly packed cricketing week, isn't it? We saw a lot of cricketing action happen all across. We will talk about it later on in our lives as well. But to be talking about football, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sport happening across the world, so it's hard to keep a track of everything. But when it comes to football, it's of course Champions League is back, and of course Europa League is also high and running because there's some big teams playing even there, and even in the Conference League as well. But overall, I would say it was slightly disappointing when it comes to some of the big teams taking the ground. I'll say UCL was extremely disappointing. It was a disappointing week for UCL. I'm just talking about the quality of games, right? It was one of those weeks where I personally felt like, okay, it can't get any boring than this, and what should I do to keep myself entertained when it comes to UCL? But when it comes to Premier League, oh, it's been a fantastic week for Premier League. Not because City defeated Arsenal, but just in general. I'm just talking about last evening's game as well, where Arsenal took on Aston Villa. What a game did we have there? Where it was evenly contested until the last moment. It was Emi Martinez, Arsenal agent, who had to come and save them. So that is what happened. That's how it unfolded over there. But when it comes to UEL, outstanding week for football there. And we did talk about it earlier on our live as well as to how UEL has got that slight better edge when it comes to informed teams in comparison with the UCL knockouts. But I hope the next fixtures of the round of 16s, right, which is coming this week, I hope that at least isn't disappointing like what it was last week. You're on mute, Jaren.
Yeah, well, let's start with the Champions League. I mean, obviously, as we did speak about, the round of 16 of the Champions League hasn't really lived up to the drama, the entertainment that we expect we are going to see. But
Yep.
probably the most octane clash was supposed to be PSG versus Bayern, where
Yeah.
Bayern did end up scoring that one goal. There was an Mbappe goal which was ruled offside, but other than that, PSG did seem to have been passed away, at least the first leg at their home. We know the home and away rule isn't there, but still PSG did let go of that home advantage with Kingsley Coman, a French player, going ahead and scoring against France. He did have the respect celebration. But however, one thing that has gone against Bayern Munich is that Benjamin Pavard won't be available for the next leg. So overall, you would still say that PSG is not out and out, isn't it?
I mean, I would say PSG is totally not out because I'm just going to be talking about the class of the players in the opposition, right? From a Bayern's perspective, when you take the one goal lead, regardless, now there's no home and away advantage as well, right?
Yeah.
So the factor which we are going to be talking about is the three players who can really change the game on its head on a given day. But I would say when you're taking that 1-0 lead, of course it's a win. Win is a win, regardless of wherever you play. But now what's going to be really concerning for a team like Bayern Munich is that if these guys get in form, which is Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, it doesn't matter for them whether they play in Parc des Princes or they play in Allianz Arena. They can just turn it on and they can actually kill that tie. So against a team like PSG, it's so important to kill a tie. If you're going to keep PSG alive by even a sniff, on a given day, understanding the pressure, they can possibly, any one of them can turn up. It need not be all three of them turning up. And that's the quality these three possesses up front as well. I know they had Mbappe was coming after an injury, Messi was coming after an injury. So you not see them extremely fluent as you would like to see them on a game like that. Uh, and also there was a lot of tactical errors from Galtier as well. I thought Galtier was totally out of sorts when it comes to him trying to run that midfield to play Carlos Soler. Um, I personally don't think Carlos Soler is your answer to countering someone like Leroy Zane, or even someone like Cancelo, because I know he's got defensive acumen or defensive traits slightly on the higher side, and he also played what a 16-year-old guy, Emery, Zaire Emery. That was also, well, I can't blame him, right? You went right into the mouth of someone like a Goretzka, and he kept him quiet throughout. And you have to say that's what you can expect from a 16-year-old making his Champions League debut against two prime midfielders in the opposition with the likes of Kimmich and Goretzka. They're going to eat you alive. And that's all. I would say whatever I've seen of him, I'm pretty impressed, but you can't ask a lot from a 16-year-old as well. It's like asking a 15-year-old kid to do something which he can't do. You can't tell him to make a figure what he studied engineering at the age of 15, unless you're a super genius or to put in that kind of a masterclass, which happens once in a blue moon. And when you're against two prime midfielders like Kimmich and Goretzka, more often than not, you're going to fall short in front of them. And that's exactly what we saw. But from for PSG's point of view, that game was extremely boring. There was nothing exciting about that game. That game just went about like both teams really wanting to not score at all. And finally, Coleman did score one, and that's how the tie was decided as well. But now I'm telling you, in Alliance Arena, anything can happen. It's still early days. Don't rule out PSG just yet. But and for Bayern Munich as well, I think Mane should return for the next leg. And if Mane is in full flow, I think that's going to help Bayern a lot. But then Bayern are not doing really well even in domestic competition. Bayern are also slightly struggling. Similarly for PSG, two out of form teams came up against each other, and you saw the
Yeah.
quality of game really depleted right in front of our eyes.
What are your thoughts on Neymar, who is touted to be? I mean, at least Chelsea seem to be interested in Neymar for the next transfer window.
Yeah,
There are rumors as well that PSG and Neymar have had a fallout in terms of the contract negotiations as well. You reckon there's
yeah,
any chance for Neymar to be leaving PSG because he did not? He was a record fee when he entered, and people were excited to see how he would do outside Messi's shadow. But now he's not only under Messi's shadow, he's also under the shadow of Mbappe, and things haven't gone well for him. He's not won a Champions League at all once he joined PSG. He wanted to set the world on fire, maybe win a Ballon d'Or, but that's not really happened for him. Now, do you reckon
mhm,
there are possibilities at Chelsea? He is going to go to Chelsea because Chelsea is going to empty the bank for someone like Neymar Jr., especially because it is a US owned management. We have seen US owned management,
yeah,
even Todd Bowley is interested in getting a high
mhm,
profile player in, even though Neymar profile isn't as it used to be when he
yeah.
entered PSG. But he's still a well known
Mhm.
commodity in football. So you reckon that's a possibility that's going to happen?
It quite is, but I really do not know what can really save Chelsea at this point of the stage because they've been struggling throughout the season, right? Throughout the season, they've been struggling heavily, and that's also primarily because they've been underconfident as to how they want to go about it, in Premier League. I'm pretty sure they're not going to make it to Europe next season because at this point of stage, with the kind of losses they've had consecutively, they look extremely clueless. And in Chelsea as well, you're going to see a lot of players leave in the summer. You're going to see a Pulisic leave. You might see Naspoli Quetta make a move. I know he did a contract extension, but he's going to leave as well. When it comes to the forward line, I think I personally don't think that's going to happen, but I think Kai Havertz will also leave the team because he looks to be a signing which has been a complete flop, except for the Champions League goal in the final. He's not really done anything substantial for them to say he justifies a
Yeah.
place in that playing 11 in any game, but he still gets that. I don't know, for some reason he's getting that trust from Graham Potter. It's just been working in his favor where he's getting that nod ahead of a lot of other players on the bench. He's getting to be brought onto the pitch as well, even if it's as a sub. So that is working in his favor, but I don't really see him being a part of this team for a longer period of time. I don't, understanding Todd Bowley. After all, he's a businessman and he like to be little bit shrewd in terms of making his decision as well. Hence, I believe someone like a Neymar is a possibility coming into a team like Chelsea. And once again, I don't think that's going to really solve a lot of Chelsea's issues as well. At this point, Chelsea has to find ways to score, and they really have to find a striker for that. I know Christopher Nkunku is going to come in the summer. I'm not sure if he's going to really answer a lot of them. He plays on the left. He plays as a second striker, not primarily as a center forward or a striker. So that's where they will have to find ways at this point of stage to end the season ASAP. At this point, if you ask a Chelsea management team any of the players, they would want to end the season, call it curtains on the season because it doesn't seem to be getting any better. It's just going from worse to worse. They've spent
Yeah.
350 million on the summer, on the winter, and they've not been able to fetch any result. They've not had a 3 pointers, 3 points since what? Since start of end of World Cup. They not really had a win, and that's very concerning for a team like Chelsea who've spent so much in the market as well. So now this is where a person like Todd Bowley will be like, okay, let me find more options to maybe enhance the team in a better way. So he might go in for someone like a Neymar. It is a possibility, and similarly for the PSG team as well. I don't think anything is working well in PSG. I don't know what really can help this PSG team now. Now at this point, as we speak, they're also playing a game right now in the league on. They are playing as Lost Lille. It's not going to be easy for them for this game. If they don't get a result, that's going to put them under a lot of pressure in the league as well. Because Marseille,
Yeah.
they'll be playing a very important game against Marseille next week, and that's going to possibly decide who's going to go on top of the table as well. If they drop points this match, so highly important games coming up for PSG, Bayern, Marseille. So for PSG, if you look from PSG's perspective as well, as a team, it is that time where you should start peaking. And if they don't peak now, then you're going to be in serious trouble come the end of March, and then you'll see a lot of changes in the PSG team. Even Nasser Al Khelaifi will believe that Neymar and Messi and Mbappe is not working well. Then they might not shy away from selling them and maybe earn some money, look at a new project as such, and then see
Hmm.
how things go for PSG, because PSG is a club who does not look at long term vision. They are pretty much on the go kind of a club where they will look at short term goals. They look at how things can be changed over a very short period of time. It has worked well for them in the league, but in Champions League it doesn't work like that. You need to build a chemistry. You need to get the right players in the mold. They brought in players from everywhere. They brought in all the sort of players in their team, but it's not working well. And that needs to be accepted by PSG and the players. I don't know if it's the chemistry. The midfield looks absolutely chaotic for me. Though they've got Fabian Ruiz, who I believe is extremely good. Vitinha is good. Verratti is good. But as a team, they're not gelled together. And this is the point of stage in the season where we really need to peak. It's not the start of the season. This is the time in the season where you have to peak. Or else your season is going to be detrimental as well. So for PSG as well, maybe Nasser Al Khelaifi might set up a new project. So Neymar will leave the club, and most likely even Messi might if Neymar leaves.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Well, talking about Chelsea, they had, I mean, probably the most interesting or the most exciting match of this week was Borussia Dortmund versus Chelsea. The yellow wall, I felt really, intimidated Chelsea as such, because I think this group of lads is playing in a Champions League after a Champions League with such crowd after a long time. And it felt like they were intimidated by the Dortmund crowd because they had, you would say, the better of the amount of shots. They had 21 shots, out of which only 8 found target. While Borussia Dortmund, on
Mm.
the other hand, had only 2 shots on target, one of which was a goal. Your thoughts, Abel, on that? How did you see the match progress? Because if you look at it overall, it was a very good match. Karim Adeyemi scored a brilliant goal in the 63rd minute. But another star again in that whole match was Emre Can, a player who was once upon a time the most sought after. But then from Liverpool to Juventus to he kept going around and never really got going. You reckon this is one of his best performances ever, and came at a very crucial time as well, because could have been 1-1 going into the second leg.
I mean, to be very honest, this tie is a very interesting tie which took place, and Chelsea have their opportunity primarily because Dortmund plays that sort of football where you get opportunity to break on counters, and they play with a high line as well. So you have the opportunity as a Chelsea team to play a game where it's more back and forth. But you saw against Southampton, you saw against teams which maintain a low block. Chelsea really struggles to score against them. In similar contrast to what they played against Dortmund, for example, against a team like Dortmund, they had more opportunities to be in the game primarily because they leave a lot of space in the back line, right? That's where Chelsea could have possibly capitalized, and they did not, and that's bad for Chelsea, right? You should be capitalizing. I know how Felix came very close to scoring in that particular period of phase of play, but they just couldn't capitalize. Once again, coming down to the very fact that Chelsea has to find players who can score now. The only way Chelsea can win matches is by scoring. Now the hardest thing for Chelsea is that they're not finding these players, and that is hard. That's it's not an easy thing, as I already mentioned, right? For Chelsea at this point, they really hope they can end the season. But on the other side, Dortmund is one of the most informed teams in Europe at this point of time. They've been unbeaten for last 7 games, and they've been on a very good run. and they're just 2 points behind Bayern Munich as well. If they win today against Hertha, I think they can go on top of Bayern Munich tonight, and that is going to be an extremely great feat as well. They're going to be second on the league. I think Union Berlin are also playing a game tonight. Union Berlin will go on top, and Dortmund will be second, and Bayern will go third in Bundesliga.
Yeah,
Not a familiar side what you've seen in Bundesliga, because this year's Bundesliga has been the most capitulating Bundesliga in the longest period of time. Now, if you look at that Bundesliga table as well, it's been a crazy Bundesliga. As we speak, Mbappe has just scored a goal for PSG as well in league. But talking about Bundesliga, you saw Bayern lost to Mönchengladbach. That doesn't matter with Sommer, without Sommer, Bayern just can't defeat Borussia Mönchengladbach. And Dortmund will really hope they take some kind of tips from Mönchengladbach as how to defeat Bayern in important Der Klassiker games as well. So
yeah,
that is where I believe, a team like Bayern Munich are not doing well, extremely well, like you talk about it. There are almost 4 to 5 teams. There are five teams competing for the top spot, because it's what 4 points which defeat the top 6 teams at this point. And that is why Bundesliga this season has been the most capitulating thing. Eintracht Frankfurt is there in the hunt. Leipzig is there in the hunt. Freiburg, who had a very good start of the season, is still there in the hunt. So I think Bundesliga will be decided by whoever goes on to do well against Bayern Munich. If teams do well
yeah.
against Bayern Munich, I think then they're going to be in a very good state to go on to win the Bundesliga. And I personally think this time we're going to see a new winner. I really hope after 10 long years we find a new winner. And it will only be justice to that league as well, because there are some good teams in that league. We often tend to write off Bundesliga by saying it's a farmers league, blah blah, and to an extent it is. Bayern has a certain amount of monopoly in that league, but then the quality of football and the matches what you see in Bundesliga is just top notch. I just not barring the matches what we saw after the World Cup break. Those are some really low quality matches what we got to witness after the World Cup games, where it was extremely sloppy, where teams did not have any idea. It just looked like the start of the season, and it was the start of the season, because as you all know, Bundesliga starts the latest among all the leagues. They have this Christmas break, so they had 2 months gap between the last game on the World Cup and the next game they played. So teams did look like they had no chemistry all of a sudden. It looked extremely sloppy, but now the pace has started to pick up again, and now teams are also doing pretty well. Dortmund is a clear example of how they are. Dortmund has been doing extremely well. If you look at that game against Chelsea, right, the kind of efforts they showed in the game, they had a beautiful game out there. I know Chelsea did have a lot more shots, like 21 shots. Dortmund, in contrast, at 14. But the way in which they put up that game, obviously Jude Bellingham had another masterclass on there, and also a place like ADMA, the pace at which he was breaking. Sebastian Holler's inclusion in the team has actually helped this team a lot more. It has
Yeah.
helped them with a striker who can press, who can hold the ball a lot more. It's helped them to play with a lot more aggression on there, keep a high line, and that's why I'll give credit to someone like a Slotterback as well. I'm a huge fan of Slotterback. I'm extremely critical on him when he messes it up. But in that game against Chelsea, with that formation of 4-1-4-1, they've been outstanding. And I think for a team like Dortmund, they will feel a lot more comfortable going to Stamford Bridge. And even for Chelsea, they'll believe they can go on to defeat Dortmund, but not with this form. Dortmund will be the strong favorites heading into that game against Chelsea in Stamford Bridge. Unless something really drastically turns around in Chelsea, and you'll see a lot more changes happen where the team starts gelling a lot better than what they are already doing right now.
No, I mean, so that's pretty much from what the matches that have already happened. Now, on 22nd, this Wednesday, that is, we'll be having 4 matches in the Champions League. Now, obviously, the biggest of them is going to be Liverpool versus Real Madrid, the repeat of last year's final. But two teams, especially Liverpool, who are having a contrasting season to last year. Last year, they were everywhere, and they were in the FA Cup, they were in the Carabao Cup, they were in the Premier League race, they were in the UEFA Champions League race. But it just seems like they've really exhausted themselves from the last season, because out of the four possible trophies, they end up only with two, and that really did hurt them. And then to go ahead and have the kind of season they're having, they might not even be in the Europa League next year. So what do you reckon? Two teams again, Real Madrid as well have struggled in La Liga. Barcelona has dominated them. There is a huge gap between the two teams. But you
Mhm.
reckon now going into Anfield, Liverpool or Real Madrid will be much more confident. It's not going to be easy. The crowd is going to be hostile, but the team is not going to believe in themselves. Liverpool to go ahead and beat Real Madrid, who have been kind of a monkey on their back in Champions League, regardless.
I mean, yes, it's not going to be easy for Liverpool at all, but at the same time, even for Real Madrid, that those teams, I think Real Madrid has got the edge at this point. But for Liverpool,
Yeah.
the only silver lining is that they got those 3 points last night against Newcastle, who are also who've been unbeaten in the league so far. They've had a fantastic run so far in the league. They've been outstanding, right? The Newcastle team in the league. To get 3 points against a team like that, they'll take a lot of confidence with the kind of form whatever Liverpool has shown over the season. But even there, coming up against Real Madrid, it's a different kettle of fish altogether. Real Madrid in Champions Leagues, they know how to get those results, and they usually turn up for these big games. But I really hope the only way, I believe as well, the way in which if you want to defeat Real Madrid is to maintain intensity over a longer period of time, which at this point Liverpool really lacks. Liverpool, if they have to defeat Madrid by any chance, will have to maintain intensity and they'll have to really take it on to Real Madrid, or else Real Madrid will defeat you. Now, before that, you need to have players like what you saw last evening. You saw Fabinho step up. You saw someone like a Bajtic step up as well. Bajtic is looking like a very good signing, very good player who has come up from the academy for Liverpool. There's a lot of future in that guy as well. And yesterday, you saw how Gakpo was deployed as a centre forward or in his usual position of being a winger as well. Nunez was deployed on the left wing. So there are positive signs for this Liverpool team from yesterday's victory, but it's
Mhm.
still far from done. I would say if you have to compete in Bernabeu, if you have to compete in that tie, and if you have to take the game deep, I personally think it's going to be intensity which will actually topple Real Madrid, because Real Madrid in the recent past as well, when teams have applied pressure on them, when teams have looked to close down their midfield, they've struggled a lot. That's primarily also because last season was a long season for them, and some of the midfielders have had a much longer and a much more tireful season as well, like some Modric, Kroos, and age is also catching up to them to some extent, right? So there is a better opportunity to defeat Madrid than what they had in the final last time. See, final, even the last year's final, Liverpool were starting as favorites, but then they just couldn't get those opportunities. Real Madrid closed down the game right after that goal which Vinny scored. So these are the moments where you really need to come back, and if Liverpool get any win from that, any of those ties, it's going to give them a lot of confidence to end the season better. Now they'll be playing the first game in Anfield. That's going to be a huge boost for them if they can get that lead going into Bernabeu and then putting up a masterclass there. I know it's a tough ask from this team, but it's not impossible, right? That's what they'll be hoping going into Bernabeu. And if they do it, then it's going to be exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, I mean, John Walker does say that he's happy that 3 points from Liverpool yesterday. It was a great win for Liverpool against Newcastle, a team actually which is flying high. Newcastle, that is. But let's talk about Europa League. This is where we had a kind of a switch where Europa League suddenly pulled up some great matches. The first one, obviously, my favorite that I watched throughout was Barcelona versus Man United, which is an excellent match. Both the teams were matching each other. Obviously, you would
Mm.
say that Man United had a slight edge
Yeah.
because they did waste a lot of opportunities. There was one open goal chance by Jadon Sancho, who's just not having a good time in Man United, and I think there was one more that Rashford had early on where he could have
Yeah.
broken the breakthrough, but I mean he could have had the breakthrough, but couldn't. But then, in these kind of matches where the kind of tension that builds up, one goal is enough to really break that tension, and then suddenly one goal brings three and then four, and that's what happened. It was a 2-2 overall draw. But let's start able with Man United. You felt that Eric Ten Hag got the better of Xavi in terms of stats, because I mean in terms of the lineup, because run me through this lineup, people, where you had Marcus Alonso, who was the centre back for Barcelona, and it was Alonso and Alaba at the same end where Rashford was trying to, get through. So now you have a player like Rashford who was outpacing two gentlemen, while on the other hand you had Araujo and Balde, if I'm not wrong.
No, it
Um,
was Araujo, and then you had
and
Jordi
Kunde.
Alba.
It was Araujo and Kunde on the other end, where
Kunde started centre back. Araujo was the right back, and
yeah,
Alba was
absolutely,
the
and
left
that's
back.
where Rashford never had to go in that area, and that's the reason why in the second half we suddenly saw Rashford making those run throughs, because he was able to be outpace them. So you reckon Eric Ten Hag won the managerial battle at least.
Well, he did. He did. I mean, I don't know what's the reason why Barca deployed that lineup. I know Marcus Alonso did score that goal, and it looks very good when it comes to that selection. Xavi will feel like he's really done a masterclass there, but it wasn't. Barca really went away from their identity for a minute. And even in the play style, it wasn't just about team selection. It was also in the play style where they tried to be unlike Barca. I know they went player to player. They wanted to plan specifically against Marcus Rashford. Hence, they deployed Araujo. But then Araujo, when it comes to transition, going up the field doesn't give you that option, which maybe Jules Koundé does, or maybe any other right back does. Because there are a lot of limitations with Araujo when it comes to playing him on the flanks, making him as an attacking option in comparison with any other wing back what you have in the team. So that's where I personally felt that was not the right way to go about it. I know you wanted to tackle Rashford, but then you could have still played Araujo as a right center back and made sure that Rashford does not really come into spaces inside the box. And that's where I think Xavi should have been a little more smarter in terms of making that decision. And that would have given Barcelona a lot more fluidity as well. But when it comes to playing someone like a Marcus Alonso, it wasn't a good move. I personally think when Christensen was brought into the pitch, right? I think it was after 65, 70 minutes when he came into the pitch. There was a lot more fluidity in the game. Barca had that slow build up, which is so essential for Barcelona, and that's one of the pivotal points as well, which you need to talk about. Whenever we talk about Barcelona this season, the build up starts from the back, and Christensen is a very important point, or a very important focal point in that build up. And having him in that 11, bringing him in as a sub, you saw that there was a complete change in the fluidity in terms of the build up as well from the back. The carrying ball progression to Frankie De Jong became much more clearer, because with Marcus Alonso, you felt like he was one press away. You were losing the balls a lot of times in your own half, and that's primarily because there was no confidence for Marcus Alonso in terms of his ball progression. You saw that there was a lot of issues in terms of that, and they were trying to intercept the passes which you make to Frankie De Jong as well, which I thought was brilliant from United. They had a
Yeah.
game plan which was very set. It was not like they were trying to play a Cruyffian style of play. They tried to match you in terms of physicality. They were winning the second balls a lot more. And it was very important to understand they play like an English team, an old school English team who try to beat you with physicality, who try to beat you with aerial presence. Their idea was very simple: beat you aerially, play the long balls in, attack them on the counter, open the back line up. And that's where Barca was felt wanting on many occasions. And you have to credit Ten Hag for that. He knew exactly what to do. He knew that his team's physicality is much more better than what Barcelona are, and you did see that as well as the game went on. They were the better team who were able to continue that momentum even into the second half. Once Pedri was off, you saw Barcelona looked a little jaded because there was no
Yeah.
presence in terms of moving the ball upfield, in terms of the presence in terms of coming into interiors, getting covering the right half spaces, uh, and also on the left hand side. But what Xavi misses not to go with Balde. There were so many occasions where you saw the left flank being wide open, and you lack that extra bit of pace. I know Jordi Alba is fast, but not fast enough. Where Balde is fast and he's got that presence to make that presence in the left flank, because Gavi was operating in the half spaces, and that's where someone you need a left back who could really go into the flank, move upfield, and get into the box rather quickly. And with Aaron Van Bissaka having a disaster class on the right hand side for United, you could have possibly capitalized it by going with Balde. But then Javi indicated that he is focusing a lot more on the league in comparison with the European competition. Fair enough to him. He believes he does not really care about Europa League. I mean, he has possibly got his reasons, but then um, I don't mind him focusing primarily on the league. But then you should be competing. I mean, as a Barcelona team, I know now it's going to be a Herculean task for the Barcelona team to go to OT, and OT is Old Trafford, and to compete against this United team in their own backyard, because European nights in Old Trafford can be extremely
Also, I
daunting if
mean,
you are
just to
very.
add to that, Abel, second leg is they're going to be probably playing second leg, obviously without Gavi, and the fact that Pedri is under the scanner as well post the injury. Let's start with Gavi.
Pedri's
Right?
not going to be there. Pedri's out for a
He
month.
isn't, so that just makes it much more difficult. And you already spoke about how his role in this team and how we saw the impact after he was subbed off. But let's talk about Gavi there, right? That when he pulled the shirt of the Man United player, I don't remember the name of the player, but
It's
pulling a
Fred.
shirt which I think it was Fred, yeah. And when he tried to pull Fred's shirt, there wasn't even a tactical foul possible there. There was no need for that. There was just a rash challenge. And knowing that he had the amount of yellow cards and then to pick another and that too, right? A few minutes after, Gavi had to, I mean, Pedri had to be subbed off. You can have a bit immature-ish from Gavi because now
Yeah, it
it's going to
was. It
really hurt
certainly was.
Barcelona.
It certainly was. It was not a tactical foul at all. I mean, this game, you could say there were a lot of questionable refereeing decisions, but at the same time,
Of course.
they were pretty spot on in terms of calling the right fouls. You can't get away when it comes to pulling those shirts from those angles. You're completely being watched out for. I know it was a counter where you really had to win a tactical foul, but when pulling a shirt is a direct yellow offense, and you knew
But
if you get one more
even
yellow,
they
you're gonna miss the
were
next leg.
my issue with that being they were Barcelona defenders in front of Gavi, in front of Fred rather. So that just seemed like more anguish that Fred got past him, and
Yeah.
a sort of a mindset where you don't want someone to go past you, and when they do, you want to stop them at any cost because they were defenders. Right, the back four was ready for Fred's
Hmm.
next move, so that just felt a little rash.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I have to say it was extremely rash in the whole context of the game. But then even there, I have to be very honest in terms of whatever Gavi did cannot be justified. As a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, you can get away with those fouls, but then at this point, you are considered as a very special player, and you are one of the pivotal points in the Barcelona team, and that's where you feel Gavi is slightly more headless when it comes to doing things much more mature in comparison with Pedri. Pedri is a lot more composed. Pedri's temperament is second to none when it comes to controlling the midfield in Europe at this point. He's one of the best midfielders in Europe. And it's not a small. He's not one of the best youngsters in Europe. He's one of the best midfielders in Europe, rather, at the age of 19. But when it comes to Gavi, as an 18-year-old, you can be slightly immature, and you saw that. And you need to be getting better from these kind of opportunities. And you've seen that from Gavi a lot of times. It's not the first time. He can be a little reckless, even when it comes to pressing. He doesn't press and trigger. I know that's a very good trait to have, that you are a compulsive presser who can be pressing throughout the course of the game. But then you don't have to be reckless as well when it comes to decision makings as well. You've seen that with Gavi over a period of time where he can be extremely reckless at times, and that's where he's having to face the brunt of it even now. But my personal opinion is he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that, and that's going to cost Barca a lot. Now it depends on who Barca will deploy. There's a lot of concern as to whether Busquets will be fit as well. Tonight's game against Cadiz is going to be a very important one because you might see Barca play a similar lineup as to what they might play against United during the midweek, because Pedri is anyways out. There is no denying that. Gavi might start today, but I'm also seeing there might be a chance of Pablo Torre, who's a young Barca player. There's a lot of hopes on him as well coming through the system. Very similar mold. He's not yet shown what he can really show in Europe, but there is a lot of potential in him. But if he's going to get any minutes, and if he goes on to have a good game today, and I'm pretty sure he'll get that nod ahead, I don't think Barca will trust Sergio Roberto, Kessie, Sergio Roberto and Kessie to be the replacement for Gavi and Pedri. They will want to try out a youngster who can be slightly more burden free, who can go out there. And I know it's gonna be way too much of a demand for a youngster, but Pablo Torres has got the potential to do it. I know it's a huge stage against Casemiro, Fred. It's not going to be it's not going to be easy at all. And Sabitzer is also going to be back for the next leg, so it's not going to be easy at all. But then it's not a bad option at all. You can try someone like a Pablo Torre in a game like this against Cadiz. See how he goes about it. If he's doing well, then you can give him enough minutes even for the United game. And if Busquets is back, that's going to give them a lot of confidence when it comes to controlling the tempo of the United game, because when you have Busquets is the one who sets the tempo for the entire Barca attack or anything what Barca does as well. I know he's gonna be exposed if United are gonna press, and United have been a crazy pressing team when it comes to first few minutes of the game in Europe this season. And that is where Busquets will have to be wary of what his limitations are, but at the same time it's going to be a positive as well for Barcelona. You're on mute, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, another match that even Helga has referred to here was Leverkusen versus Monaco, where
Yeah,
last minute winner. It did start off a little too rocky for.
yeah,
It did start off a little too rocky for Leverkusen with that own goal right away. But
yeah.
after that, they had a comeback, and it just seemed like it was going to go on until the 74th minute, where Diata and Diassi both come. I mean, both scored their own goal. I mean, their goals in a span of 16 minutes, and ended the game or took the game away from Leverkusen. But it seemed like the German team had almost made an upset, you would have to say, because Monaco is a prolific team when it comes to European competitions.
Not just in European competition this season, Monaco have been a very good team when it comes to the league on as well. They've been in good form, right? That's the most important thing at this point. They've been in very good form in terms of they've been in good form recently at least, and they're just I know they're few points behind PSG, but then the recent past form by defeating PSG 3-1, they were coming into this game with a lot of confidence, and that's what you saw in that game as well. They were down, but then for them to come back the way they did, it was beautiful. I mean, that's why you have to give credit to Monaco team. That game was a very intensive contest. It was a back and forth game, and that's why you like to see games like this, right? You saw five
Yeah.
goals scored in the contest, and they were challenged. There was Leverkusen went in the high line, and I expected a lot more with Leverkusen, and they did fight as well compared to what they are having a Bundesliga season slightly more disappointing, but you saw how they took it to it. And Monaco are a strong team in this league. I think European competition as Europa League, I don't know how far they might go, but then I'm pretty sure they are in with an opportunity to go deep into this competition as well. I know it's early round even now, but do not write Monaco off just yet because they can defeat some of the big teams in the competition as they go about just because of the form they're showing at this point, and some of the players are in good form.
Yeah, I mean, that was another interesting match right there. So let's talk about the Premier League. I think we've covered most of the highlights when it comes to UAE. Okay, one last point though. We have to talk about the stand of refereeing, right? Barcelona Man United game saw a lot of howlers. And even, for instance, the one where Rashford, there was a tactical foul on Rashford, which was not given. It was outside the box. I know Man United wanted a penalty. It was outside the box by Jules Koundé. And then in the Man United box, in the Barcelona box rather, we saw a foul being committed once again where Barcelona clearly wanted a penalty. That wasn't given either. So both the managers also did not seem happy. There was a discussion between Ten Hag, Xavi, and the referees at towards the end of the game. So, and then again in the Juventus versus Nantes game, there was another howler right at the end, which could have given Juventus the lead over Nantes in that final minute.
I mean, Barcelona versus United game. People are talking about howlers, but I personally don't think those are howlers per se. If you look in the context of the game, see it's touch and go. Especially the Rashford foul. I know he was the last man through to the goal, and if Kunde would have fouled him, he deserved a red, and Kunde was already on a yellow. So either way, he at least deserved a yellow. But then it was not checked properly as well. It could have possibly been an
Yeah.
offense, but then now even referees are instructed to go in with the flow of the game, right? And that's why you personally feel like um, you can look into VAR, you can go deep, but then when a game is back and forth, they do not want to disrupt the flow of the game because it could have well been the entire beauty of the game was on the flow, how it was how it was ebbing and flowing throughout. It was a back and forth contest. If you wanted to have those kind of refereeing stopping the game, then the entire flow would have been disrupted. The game would have looked a lot more jaded in that term. But when it comes to Barcelona in the box as well, see, it's touch and go. It could have gone either way. On another day, it could have been called a penalty. On a different day, it wasn't called penalty as well. So that is where you need to keep that in mind, and also the distance between the two players. Could he have taken his hand away at that last moment? That also needs to be measured. When we look into the rules, the distance between the two players is a very important factor in terms of deciding the penalty. It does not matter the extension of the arm. I know even if your arm is near to your body nowadays, penalties are called. But then the distance between the player who was heading the ball into that person's hand and also the player who was at the receiving end is a very important factor in terms of calling those penalties. That's why not going to the. I think the VR check was done there. People are feeling the VR check wasn't done. VR check was done, and it was ruled out after the VR check. Barca fans will feel undone, hard done with that. They'll feel like, okay, we are again once again on the receiving end. I can understand what happened against Inter Milan was a robbery. What happened against Bayern Munich was tough. It's been a tough time for Barcelona fans in European competitions because there have been a lot of decisions which have gone against Barcelona, which has resulted that they are in the Europa League at this point. If a couple of those decisions would have gone then, Barcelona would have been playing in the Champions League knockout round of 16 right now instead of playing in Europa League. So that's how a season has been for Barcelona, and for Barcelona fans to see another decision like that, that is where a lot of frustration has come out. That's where a lot of people feel like they are hard done for once again on the other end, receiving end in terms of refereeing decisions. But when it comes to United fans, they feel that should have been a red card for Jules Koundé, and the second goal would not have come. It would have been an entirely different context. So I know it was outside the box. It could have possibly been a red card for Koundé. That's all. It would not have been a penalty either way. That's all I feel. I mean, you could have, would not have, but then it looked like a very touch and go kind of decision. On some days it's given, on some days it isn't. So can't really blame the referee or anyone for that.
Yeah, I mean, understandable enough because it is not an easy job refereeing. You're running after players at a high speed, and the players nowadays have become a lot faster than they were or they used to be. Let's look at the Premier League side of things, Abel. We did speak about Arsenal and Aston Villa and how close of a match that was. Emiliano Martinez in news for a different story, where he scored his first ever goal for Arsenal, as one would like to say. But let's talk about. I think probably we have spoken about the Arsenal and the Arsenal and Aston Villa game, but I think one very important game has to be Nottingham Forest and Manchester City, where Manchester City leading into this week were at the top of the table with 1 point. It was going to be a difficult one, but you felt that a team like Man City would have kept that lead, but they were visiting Nottingham Forest. The Nottingham Forest ground is known for a very good crowd. They are in the Premier League for a long time. For those of you who know the history of the club, will know this, and the crowd has been enthusiastic, even though the team hasn't really lived up to the hype that we expected after the likes of Jesse Lingard joined this team. But now, having dropped points against Nottingham, they are again back to the second side of in the league, trailing by 2 points. What do you reckon? I mean, where do you think things went wrong for Pep and his team? Because that was an unlikely goal by Chris Wood.
Yeah. I mean, that is where it went wrong. They did not anticipate that goal. They thought they can just play around and hope that this game ends in a 1-0 win at least. They should have gone for that kill. That is where Manchester City missed the trick. And Nottingham Forest was extremely tenacious in terms of maintaining that 1-0 lead only. Trailing by only 1-0. They could have also let go in a couple of occasions, but they did not. But that's where this season Manchester City have been less ruthless for a lot of reasons. I do not know why. It's very unlike City in a lot of occasions. When City sends an opportunity, they try to kill the game at least by 3 to 4 goals. And you saw in that in the return
Yeah.
game in Etihad as well earlier on in the season, where West Forest did tour Etihad and they had a tough time there. But something or the other, City have been dropping points in the most weirdest ways. Not against some of the most top teams, against teams who have been doing extremely bad in the Premier League at this point. It's been funny, right? They've been doing well against some of the top teams, and
Yeah.
against smaller teams they've been having a shaky time in the Premier League. And you can't win league like that. These are the most important 3 points which you need to grab in order to compete in the Premier League as well. So that's where I feel they had a tough time. But it's not over. The league is not yet over. I think it's far from over for City. They'll have another game against Arsenal, which is very important, and they will
Yeah.
also be playing Leipzig in the midweek and in the Champions League as well. And I think FA Cup is also there. The Newcastle United is a very important game for them. So there are some big games coming for City, and for even for Arsenal, right? Arsenal getting those 3 points after that, after them only having to, after them only having 1 point and possible 9 points in the last 3 games. That win was massive for them because that could have possibly derailed the season as well if they would have gone on to lose
Yeah.
points yesterday. So for them to get those 3 points is a massive up for them in this season. And things are just working out for Arsenal in the most weirdest ways, right? For them to have the lead and to go on to win the league as well. So that's what I would say at this point.
Yeah, I mean, true enough. I think another story that I really want to talk about is obviously, if you look at today's matches, we have Man United versus Leicester City and Tottenham versus West Ham. Let's focus on Tottenham because they've had a horrid last game, and I think it's kind of gone under the radar with the European tournament. I mean, with the European side of things returning. They lost against Leicester City, who are now 14th place after the last win, 4-1. And I know it was at the King Power Stadium they were visiting, but Tottenham was touted to be a huge competition to Arsenal. The way this
Mm,
team was forming under Antonio Conte, we did cover it
yeah.
at our preview as well for the season. Surprising, isn't it? 4-1 loss, you reckon? But it's also been an issue with them whether they haven't been able to really kill off matches right away, and they've let go of the narrative very early, and now all of a sudden again losing 4-1. West Ham hasn't had the best of tournaments. Yes, they probably are. They are in the relegation zone. That's why it's such an important match for them to win this one. But just talking about, run me through Tottenham. What's really going wrong for them this season? And there are rumors saying that Antonio Conte is not looking to stay after this season, which we all know he's not a manager who likes to stay at a particular club for more than a year or so. But still, we felt there was something special building here for Tottenham under Antonio Conte, and it just seems to have fallen apart all too quickly.
I mean, yeah, it has fallen apart all too quickly for them. But I mean, it's been that kind of a season from the start. They did start off pretty well. They got the right signings in that team. But it's been a Tottenham story forever now. I do not know who can possibly save them. I don't know if it's a managerial issue or the mentality issue within the camp. There are a lot of things which are not right in Tottenham at this point, and it's so important to have a legacy there, or at least one instance of you doing well in the league. The closest they ever came was 2015 season, where they lost by few points to Leicester City. That was the closest they came. But after that, you can say there were instances where Tottenham came extremely close to winning a league and they did not. But this
Hmm.
season was a very decent season where they should be in the top four at least, if not number one, number two. And that is where they are really messing it up. They've got a good record in terms of coming back after being trailing, after being put down by a goal or two, and that's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
stat to have. But at the same time, it also, on the flip side of things, you can understand that that also means you're conceding a lot more. That also means your
yeah.
start, the way you're getting off to good starts, are very minimal, and that's where teams have exposed them. For example, the game against Milan, uh, once Milan took the league, they understood they can actually block off this team completely, and that entire
Hmm.
threat can be nullified as well. Except that game against City, they really haven't really turned up in many of these occasions. And even against Leicester was a horror game for them. Leicester has had a
Yeah.
very poor season, and for them to lose 3 points and the way they lost by losing 4-1, I think it was the same game where it was they had a last minute lead. I think it was Swan who had come earlier on in the return leg and scored a hat trick in the when Leicester was leading. I think it was 2-2. Then I think it was 2-2, and then Swan made 5-2 or something like that. I remember that earlier on in the season. So Leicester has given
Hmm.
them a hard time. Now it's not been the most easiest time for them against Leicester, but then Leicester really dominated them in the last game, and I'm pretty happy that Leicester are coming back after that horror start they had. Brendan Rodgers
Yeah.
slightly building the confidence of the team, but for Antonio Conte, I think I don't know what more he needs to get that team in the top four. I think he's got one of the best teams out there when it comes to players
Yeah.
on paper, at least, and the kind of quality he has on the pitch. But then he's not been able to convert that on the kind of performances they've been able to put up this season. And that is where they'll be looking back and feeling, okay, now this is a season they'll want to at least get into Champions League. But if they're not able to do it, I think he should go.
Yeah, I think he himself has struggled a little bit in terms of getting things right in this for this team. But I think before we end, let's talk about Serie A. We did speak about the Bundesliga. We did speak about Ligue 1 as well. But let's talk about Serie A with Napoli has done an extremely incredible job. It's not been a flash in the pan. Now it's been what 23 matches already that they've played. They only lost one, and they've drawn two. That's three matches where they've lost points. They've just been miles apart. And now, obviously, there was a story of Juventus where Juventus did get docked 15 points, and all of a sudden, from what I think was a third or fourth spot, they went all the way down to the 10th spot. We do have a reel on Instagram explaining everything that's gone down there. If do check it out on our Instagram page. But let's talk about Napoli, and let's talk about one player in particular. It's Victor Osimhen. He's just been fabulous, hasn't he? He's just recently broken the record of Cristiano Ronaldo's highest jump ever to score a goal. But
Mm.
overall, he's just had a groundbreaking season. And I think we have spoken about everyone else who's done an incredible job, but this lad, he's just been fabulous, and now he's leading the most goals scored in Serie A this season by five in against Lautaro Martinez, who scored 13. He scored 18. Just run me through what is going well for him, because now a lot of Premier League clubs are interested in him, and he might make a
Mm.
move next season. I mean, come the next season. Yeah.
I mean, this guy is an extremely good player. He reminds me so much of Samuel Eto'o at times in terms of the way in which his movements are inside the box, and he's got pace, right? These two things with physicality, what he has. I mean, he's been having an outstanding season, Jalen. I mean, I've not seen any other player with so much of pace and explosiveness in Syria for a longest period of time, and he deserves to be playing in a top quality European team. And the way in which this team has dealt up, it's just not Victor Osimhen, right? They've had a complete bunch of people, performing for this team throughout the season. I mean, I have to mention Kvicha Kvaratskhelia. What a season he
Yeah.
has had. Lozano has had a fantastic season. Labotka has had a fantastic season. Zelinski has had a very good season as well. And that's where this team has been a complete unit. It's just not been a couple of players coming in and stepping up, and it's just not been individual brilliance per se. It's been bunch of players coming in and seeing what you've seen in Napoli. It's been a complete turnaround from what they were expected to have. After at the start of the summer, you already felt like with Koulibaly leaving, with Insigne moving off, with Mertens off, this team is going to be struggling. But then it's been a turnaround of a generation for Napoli,
I mean, we
and
have
it
to speak
looks,
about Min Jae, who's taken
yeah.
the spot of Koulibaly, who's been again, the same role that Koulibaly had. He's been a destroyer in the back four, and we have to speak about how he has stepped into the shoes of Koulibaly, who was probably one of the best defenders in Europe at that time when he was playing for Napoli. So it's been that issue, or rather, it's been that blessing for Napoli, where whoever has left, they've been able to find a replacement right away and make sure that their pace in terms of how they are progressing this season is not interrupted at all.
I mean, that is one factor, and they've completely changed the way they're playing. They're pressing a lot more. Their off the ball movements have been outstanding, and that is where you feel a player like Osimhen, his off the ball movements have been fantastic, and that's where you feel um, Napoli as a unit. It's 11 men monsters were stepping onto the field, and it's tough to compete against them. You already saw Liverpool capitulating to them on at their home ground. How good they can be on once they're on song as well. Now let's talk about their creation of chances, right? Their creation of chances, how Kvicha Kvaratskhelia moves into interiors, how Mario Rui is giving them that width on the left hand side. There's all clear examples of how, as a team, they've been progressing, how they've been able to finish off the opposition by just playing good football. And it's just not been negative football. It's very antithetic to Italian football in the way in which they've been playing. They've been playing some really impressive football, and that's why they've been able to not just compete in Italy. They've been also able to put some really strong performances even in the Champions League. You never know. They might be the one to watch out for even in the Champions League with the kind of form they've shown. And now
Yeah,
they'll be playing Eintracht Frankfurt in the
yeah.
round of 16. If they get past them, I'm pretty sure they can take on any big team in Europe as well. And I have to talk about, especially about even Lobotka, the kind of season he's had with Zelensky in the midfield. Top player to them. They've actually made sure that if you are ready to put in some masterful performance, especially in terms of control, in terms of pressing the opposition, taking the ball, the kind of chemistry they built, it's going to be tough for opposition to break the lines against them. And that is where defensive midfield and attackers like Osimhen, everybody comes into the picture. If you have to talk about a modern day team, they are they're a clear example of how modern day football is played. So you have to be really good off the ball, and when it comes to pace, when it comes to transitions, they are extremely good in terms of attacking transitions, with Osimhen leading the attack.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. And I mean, they have been just incredible in that sense. Also, it could really be the year for Champions League as well. I mean, we were speaking about it off camera, as we were talking about how probably the only teams that can challenge them is Bayern and Real Madrid or PSG, depending on whoever goes through, because Liverpool, Inter Milan, Tottenham, AC Milan, or probably even Man City, probably another team which can really challenge them. But if not for these teams, it does seem like Napoli, on just on the basis of form, are the best team in terms of in the Champions League right now.
Yeah,
All
they
the other
are.
teams,
They are.
even the ones that I spoke about, are going through a little bit of a difficulty.
When you talk about like
Bayern's,
league leaders right now who are remaining in this
yeah,
knockout, they're the only league leaders. Other all the
correct.
teams are mid-table, and Bayern Munich is also there. But Bayern Munich cannot be league leaders if Hertha wins or Dortmund wins. But other than that, I would say when you talk about league leaders who are in very good form, they are the only ones in the Champions League. On that very
Yeah.
factor, I believe Napoli have got that edge.
True, fair enough. Well, thank you so much, Abel, for joining us, and talking about football all over Europe. And we also have to thank everyone else who's come and watched us speak about it and had their opinions as well. Thank you guys so much for joining. And we have to leave. Before we leave, we have to talk about Boom 11, the fantasy app, which provides you a risk-free experience where you can download it on Apple App Store or Google Play Store and play without any money whatsoever. So there are multiple rewards waiting for us. Do check out our Instagram page for all the rewards that we are providing right now. And the best part about it is, what is there to lose? I mean, just go in there and play with those coins that you will earn every day on the basis of your sign in, and just go crazy, have fun. But thank you guys for joining, and make sure to download Boom 11 on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Thank you guys.
Bye bye.